Hello and welcome to The Business Behind. I am your host, Kim Parnell, and we are here at Now Creative Group. Okay, so why did you think that you would be able to do this?
I don't know, I loved it.
At some point, you feel like, what were you put on this earth to do?
You have created literally a tribe of people that follow you.
Nothing's gonna stop me.
Work like a slave and eat like a king.
Everything that you want that you haven't achieved so far is usually always on the other side. Fear.
It's a dream. I can't believe it's happening, but I know why it's happening.
Hello everybody, I'm Kim Parnell and you are here watching The Business Behind. We are in Now Creative Group's studio and I'm here with Giuseppe the MC, my lovely guest for today. Although,
everyone.
Please say your name the proper way for me.
It's Giuseppe.
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 Giuseppe. All right,
You have to move
eventually.
your hands when you say it.
Okay, we'll get there
Yeah.
eventually. Okay, so before we get started, there are probably some people that have never met you before,
There are a few,
although
yeah.
I also hope lots of your fans are watching this.
I hope so.
But for those that have never met you before, can you just give us a little rundown about yourself?
Okay, so my real name is Giuseppe Malacca, but everybody knows me as Giuseppe the MC. I'm an MC. I MC events. I've been doing this for a few years now, and somehow I ended up becoming a comedian as well this past couple of years. And it's taken me far, and it's been fantastic. And I make videos online, little comedic videos, and they seem to be received very well. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
Okay, so we have a lot to talk about
Yeah.
because I have come to know you through social media. Your
Yeah.
social media presence is amazing, and that's how we met, more or less.
Yes.
So, that's obviously a great indication of how prevalent social media is now in our culture and in business. But taking it back a little bit, how did you first get into emceeing?
So from high school, I was president of my high school, president of student council, so always in front of a crowd. And then after high school, when there was events, charity events, some people needed a hand. They said, hey, we need an MC. So I always put my hand up, say, hey, I can help out. And and just over time, it was fashion shows, it was galas, it was charity events, whatever it was. I was just contributing my time and helping out the best I could. And yeah, that's how it all started.
Not everyone, though, is comfortable on stage. So did you always know from a young age? Like, were you a performer? Were you a kid that was always getting up?
You know what? I don't know. I just, from high school, I got pretty confident. You have to when you're president of the council. I mean, you have to get in front of a crowd all the time and just speak, and whether it's relaying comedic information or important information, whatever it is. And I don't know, I loved it. I loved that feeling, that rush I would get every time I'd hit a stage and people were looking at me and I was talking, and yeah.
So it wasn't a nervous thing for you?
No, I've never been nervous.
I
get nervous, actually every single time I talk in front of a crowd, you have to have a little bit of nerves. But they're good nerves. They're ones that keep me grounded, and they get me through the event.
So I'm kind of the same way. Like, I like being on stage. I feel an energy from the crowd that doesn't really make me nervous. Same thing, maybe a little bit beforehand. But what would you say to anyone that is maybe really nervous about being on stage? I don't know. Maybe you don't know because you were never nervous. But is there any tips that you have? That's something a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah, I drink a lot of cognac before I go. No, really. I'll have something. I have a few drinks. Loosen up. I don't know why I need it. I do. I'll be honest, just a little bit, and not that I had any today, unfortunately. But for me, it's when I know I'm about to perform or I'm about to talk in front of a crowd. I usually find a spot, quiet, alone, and just really start to focus and zero in and say, okay, you're about to represent yourself in front of people, so be the best you can be, and show them what you got. And it kind of gets me into that position.
Okay, let's talk about that for a second. So when you are doing this thing and you're by yourself and you're talking to yourself, even though you've done this so many times, you still think that's an important part of it?
Every single time.
Really?
I rehearse everything I do constantly. Everybody says, oh, you're a natural. Yeah, natural because I've naturally been saying it for the past 4 or 5 days, constantly, over and over again. I do believe that if you want to be a master of your craft, you have to continue to practice. And I've gone on tour and I've said the same show 20 times. And yet I'll rehearse it from start to end every time.
So what kind of things do you say to yourself before you're about to get on stage or before you're about to go out and do an MC event?
I actually, I always try to look for somebody in the room to be my anchor. So what I call an anchor is somewhere I can, let's say I'm doing a comedy show and I have, I don't know, 20 jokes or my story, 20 stories. I'll literally find some of the audience and just drop all 20 stories on their head. And so if I lose track of myself or maybe a joke didn't go as well in front of that crowd versus another, I find that person and I pull the joke out and I say, okay, next. And I ground myself that way. And so I find that I have certain techniques that I use when I perform that work for me. They might not work for everyone. Everybody's got their own thing, what they do. But I find that if I position myself in the room and I make the room my room, then I don't lose myself.
So how do you go about doing that? What do you mean by making the room your room?
I pretend so when I practice, I actually practice at home. I'll either practice in the basement or I'll practice in the kitchen. Why? Because I have a nice window in the kitchen. It's almost like a small reflection. And I take ownership of that room. That room belongs to me. Doesn't matter what's going on. There's no distraction. It's my room. And so, because anytime you perform on stage, I've seen you, the slightest thing can throw you off. The slightest thing. Somebody's walking and you hear their shoes and you're going nuts. But you have to say, no, this is my room. I'm in control. Anything can happen. And so if you put yourself in a spot where the room doesn't belong to you, then you're going to lose yourself quite quickly.
So when you go in, is that just a mental thing? Like you just say to yourself, this is my room? Or are there certain things you do? Do you look at the whole room? Do you make an assessment of what's going on?
Yeah. So for instance, when I've performed on stage, hopefully I've been able to perform, go there earlier, right? And check out the room as an empty room. And then I start to pinpoint every angle, every spot. And then I start to imagine everyone in all the seats. I try to imagine, even if there's an empty seat, because it happens, I imagine someone in that seat. And so I create a scenario that is mine. So when I've walked in, all it is small, just a little different faces, that's all. If not, I've already seen the whole thing happen.
There's so many things I'm thinking with you talking here. One is definitely the power of visualization, right? You've visualized the scenario so many times that when you're there, it's not new to you. So you're not really nervous because you've seen it so many times.
Exactly.
And another really important thing I just thought of when you were saying that is that it can be applied to so many things, right? Even if you're not necessarily on stage doing a comedy show, but in my world, in the startup world, a lot of people will be pitching a lot, right? Where you're trying to get investors, or you might be doing it at a competition, or you're just displaying your product to new people. You're up on stage, and every single time, everyone is in the audience, and they are judging you very similarly to they are when you are on stage for comedy.
Of course, yeah. This is, I guess what we do is a bit more of a grander scale. You're in front of a lot of people, but the same technique can be used in an interview. It can be used for anything whatsoever. If you want to gain control of what's happening in the situation, you have to take ownership, always, or else you're going to lose every single time.
So when you're talking about you would pick out someone and make them your anchor, I really like that. So do you mean that you would actually speak to them and maybe call on them or point right at them?
Not at all. So I hop on stage, and there's a lot of faces, Let's just say everyone's beautiful. But there's always that one person that is just, it's not about how they look, but just how they're watching you. And you feel that they're the most engaged. And it's almost like they're your protector. Like they're there to make sure that you are on track. That's what I feel anyway. And I'll lock eyes with them. They don't know what's going on. They don't know they're my anchor. And I just, like I said, I drop whatever information I need to drop on their head visually. And I'll look at them and I'll pull it back out and go and continue. And then after my shows, because any show that I've ever done, I don't just walk off the stage and leave. I literally walk down the stage and try to greet everyone. The way I look at it is these people paid to see me, so I'm going to say hi to them. And so I'll usually go to my anchor, and I'll say, hey, by the way, you were my anchor tonight. And they don't know what I was talking about. I said, you're the reason why my show continued. And they just feel like, really? And I try to explain it to them, and they're like overwhelmed. They couldn't believe it, right? But it's important to me.
That's really cool. I know there's been times that I've been at an event or watched someone speak, and I felt kind of like the person was looking right at me, like the person on stage was looking right at me.
Yeah.
Maybe because I stare at them very intently as well. I don't know.
Sure.
But maybe, who knows? Maybe that was kind of what's going on. I mean, being on a stage can be a little bit overwhelming. It can be a little bit nerve-wracking. So if there are certain people that are looking at you, I never even thought about this before, but being that person on the stage or being that person that's presenting, being able to find those people that it's like they almost give you a bit of, like they make you breathe a little.
Especially when I first started doing shows, I had family in the audience. So it's like, my wife, my cousin, my mom, my dad, whatever. So it's like, they were my anchor, but they couldn't come to every single show. I went to Australia. I went on my own. So I needed they're almost like my family members out there. They're kind of like there to support you, And when people come out to watch my shows, I know that everyone's there to support me. That's what I feel from, I hate to use this word fans, because
You have fans, it's okay.
yeah, but it's more like, it's just like this one big community that I seem to talk to a lot, And that's the way I look at it. And I try to respond to everybody when they message me, and I'm not trying to be their friend. I think I am their friend. I always let them know that, hey, I know I'm kind of doing something that's a bit more grand scale, but you can still talk to me one-on-one. And so when I enter a room, I just feel like I'm in a room full of friends. And it's a lot easier to talk when you're in front of all your friends, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
So going from a lot of the emceeing that you were doing, I want to talk about how you were able to move that and go on an entire tour across Australia.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to go into that first, or you want to talk about how social media played into that?
So when I started emceeing, about 6-7 years ago, my sister-in-law, so my wife's sister, asked me to MC her wedding, her and her now husband. And I took it very serious, like very serious. I didn't go online and say, let me find out the key words that anybody should say as they're emceeing a wedding. I wrote a script. So this is my chance. Not to take over the wedding, even though I felt like I did, and I'm sorry for that. But I came up with an act. I came up with an opening monologue. I made fun of my in-laws. I made fun of his side of the family. Whatever, just in good nature, right? And then I came up with some routines in between the meals. And when that wedding was done, somebody at the wedding had asked me if I can MC their kid's wedding. I'm like, oh, okay. And then it happened again, and it happened again, and it happened again, to the point where it happened for a couple of years. I was just doing it for friends and family. And then eventually, after one wedding that I had done, I said, you know what? I think I could turn this into a business. And so I said, okay, what am I going to call myself? What am I going to do? I need a name. And just Giuseppe the MC came up. It was the first thing that came up. So first thing I did, I started to research on all social media. Does this name exist? Does anybody else named Giuseppe the MC? Right? So and so YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, everything, anything that existed, Yelp. I did everything, anything that was possible. Registered as Giuseppe the MC. And then when I saw it was all free, it was 11 o'clock at night till 3 in the morning. I was registered, everything, registered a website, registered all these things. And I just started moving forward like I had a business. And I'm pretty savvy with Illustrator and Photoshop, so I designed my first business card. And then I got them printed, and my wife and I were in the business of wedding invitations. So because I'm already in that business anyways, a bridal show was coming up. So I told my wife, okay, we're splitting up the booth. It used to be all invitations, now it's going to be invitations and Giuseppe the MC. And so we split it up. We had these posters made up, and then I remember when that first bridal show, people were coming up, and there was this big poster of me, and I'm in a tux, and people were like, so what's this? I'm like, it's me. Well, what do you do? I'm an MC. What does that mean? I'm an MC. I'm going to MC your event. And they said, but my DJ comes with an MC. I was like, yeah, but they're not good. And I was almost not insulting them, but I was saying, I'm the best. There's no one better than me. I have been hired for years, even though it was just friends and family. And so I kept putting it in people's heads that they needed me at their wedding because no one is going to do what I do at weddings. And I truly believe that, actually. I truly believe that I'm the best MC around. No one can do what I do at weddings. And so I said it enough times where a couple people said, yeah, okay, I'll hire you. And that's it. And that's where it all started.